Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rebel Collective podcast. I'm your host, Drago Reid.
And I'm your host, Laura Eisenhower.
We are the Rebel Collective, just two rebels that have been deplatformed, deleted, shadow banned, persecuted, and muzzled, and we're leading other rebels and pioneers in their fields and giving them a voice that can't be silenced, because we are the resistance.
Yes. Today we'll be interviewing Tyler Kiwala of the Journey to Truth podcast and Brad Olsen, author of 10 plus books, public speaker and explorer, and with all that he's discovered. And Tyler, man, on the Journey to Truth, so much has come forward with all the interviews you've done and how that's unearthed so many of your own experiences, the people you've hosted, the events that you've put on, and everything has just been phenomenal. And so it's amazing to have both of you here with us. And just kind of want to start with you, Tyler, with the first question about what has this journey to truth been like for you, and what have been the greatest revelations for you personally? And then Brad, after he shares, would love to hear about the biggest epiphanies about your discoveries in Antarctica. But go for it, Tyler. What has it been like? What have you discovered? What are the biggest revelations?
The biggest revelation, the biggest discovery is myself, discovering myself and learning who I was throughout all of this. Going into this out 4.5 years ago, I was a completely different person than I am now. And just my understanding of everything has changed, and it's constantly changing, and I'm constantly adapting. And you have to let go of certain beliefs and certain things that you attach your identity to. And it's been a struggle, but it's been beautiful because you're constantly expanding if you allow yourself to. In the beginning, in the early days, we were very naive as far as, you get into this awakening and you just believe everything that everyone's saying. You don't question things like, yeah, it's got to be true. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I trust that person. Whatever, I trust this person. But you realize it's more, it's not really resonating as it so much is exciting. And then you start realizing not everything is what it seems. And not everything is going to happen overnight like we thought it was. This is a long road. There's a long road ahead of us. I think, it's not going to be this grand awakening, this grand disclosure that all of a sudden we're going to wake up and all the healing technologies are going to be here. We're going to have free energy grid and infrastructure. I think it's going to be generational. It's going to take some time, and it's going to, it's a process. And if there's anything I learned along the way, it's just, patience. Like, we have to, I wanted everything right now, and people get angry because certain people are out there throwing out dates, and this is going to happen then, this is going to happen on this day, and it comes and goes, and you get let down, and you kind of get angry because you gave your power away to that. So it's really about just taking your power back and learning who you are, going on that path of self-discovery, having the humility to self-correct, which is something you always say, Laura, and admit when you're wrong and live in integrity, and it leads you to beautiful places. And this podcast was only started as a passion project. We had no intention of starting a business and webinars and conferences and all this stuff, but it blossomed into something beautiful. And I think that was the universe just kind of letting us know that we were on the right path. You're muted, Laura.
Sorry, guys.
Both muted. Isn't that funny, Drago? Yeah, we're so captivated and we just want to be quiet. And yeah, so go ahead, Drago, and take it away.
All right, Brad, asking the same question to you. What was it like with this whole Antarctica discovery? What put you on that momentum? What moment was it in your life that made you think, besides Emery Smith telling you that the general's going to hook you up on that little trip, why Antarctica?
Hey guys, thanks for having me on today. It's always a pleasure to speak with Laura, to meet you, Drago. And 2.5 weeks ago, I was at the Journey to Truth conference as a speaker with Tyler and others, doing my Hidden Anomalies of Antarctica presentation. Just such a mysterious place down there. And as far as I know, I'm the only researcher who's gone down there with the expressed purpose of trying to get to the bottom of what we've heard might be going on in Antarctica. And by going there, I was able to dispel the flat earth theory. There's just no such thing as the ice wall. I got pictures right here on my cell phone I could show you of being on the continental landmass and traveling across northern tip of the Palmer Peninsula via sailboat. It was quite an excursion, a very difficult one to undertake, one of the hardest trips I've ever made. But I wanted to get down there to take a look into some of these mysteries. And I think for the most part, I have found what I was looking for. But on the other hand, I didn't find what I was looking for. And that was my journey to truth, as I can drop that title in now and tell you guys that it's a wondrous place down there, filled with all kinds of mysteries. And one thing I did find out for sure, there is a big no-fly zone over a portion of the South Pole. And Eric Hecker, one of my colleagues, one of the few people I know who actually spent a year down there, is testifying today at the Stephen Greer congressional testimony about the ice cube is what they're working on down at South Pole Station, and how it may be used in conjunction with HAARP for steering energy as a energy weapon. So these revelations are coming out. There's a lot to be still discovered and learned about. In my presentation at Journey to Truth, I showed what I believe is one of the 3 large mothership crafts that is known about since the 1970s. In fact, they got the nickname from our intelligence agencies, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. And this particular one, which I think is the best evidence for some kind of ancient craft under the ice, happens to be in the German New Schwabenland area claim. So that just brings in a little bit more mystery to this incredible location on this frozen continent that didn't even feel like it was part of planet Earth. I mean, it was such a different setting that you would see anywhere else on Earth. No trees, no bushes, nothing really green down there at all, just frozen tundra and glaciers coming right into the ocean. Very dramatic landscape. And interestingly, the animals had no fear of humans. So we had whales that swam under the boat checking us out just as we were watching them, or seals on a iceberg looking at us as we were looking at them. And you could go right up to penguins and take a picture of them, even a mother baby and her chick that didn't even flinch. So it was those kind of discoveries that made that trip really worthwhile, and to continue on my journey to truth, trying to find out more about what's going on in Antarctica. In fact, that'll be the subject of my 11th book, which I'm in the current phase of working on, along with Laura Eisenhower's first book, which will be coming out this spring. So keep myself busy and out of trouble, working on cool projects that I love to do, and speaking at conferences like Journey to Truth, which are really instrumental in helping us understand this bigger picture of what's going on in the world and the universe around us.
Oh, beautiful. And it's funny, Brad's in the next room. I'm actually here with him. We're working on my book. Anyway, Drake, I know you have another question.
Following up with actual Brad, Brad, I was actually at Contact in the Desert and Conscious Life Expo this year, and I was in all 3 of your talks. The thing that sucked is they lost audio in one of your talks, so I didn't even get to get the DVD, so that really sucked. Wow. But it was freaking awesome about you and Emily going and making that, I think it was a 26-day journey or something like that, throughout the Drake Passage, launching from, like, was it Argentina?
Yep.
And the story you told, and it was pretty crazy, man. I can't imagine going through like the most stormiest seas in the world and getting right to the part where you're on that 72-foot sailboat, man, just rocking back and forth. Like, I'm a sailor too, so I know exactly what that means, but I've never experienced what you guys described. So I'm super stoked that that was actually an awesome trip. And the funny thing is, like, I seen that you went to find these pyramids and get information from the different locals, and basically everybody gave you the runaround. And no one knew anything, which is super suspicious. And I understand it's all controlled and all the information is controlled over there, but like, it was cool to see you go through that journey and figure out what's what. And I don't know, man, it was just pretty awesome. Every single talk you've done is top notch, man. And Tyler, I'm sorry I didn't go to your show. I totally wanted to go. Everyone said it was freaking awesome. Every freaking person I talked to, which is not common. A lot of these shows, they're not that great. But everyone's saying Journey to the Truth was freaking awesome. So I give you props to that, man.
Oh yeah, I went last the first one. It was so incredible. I know this one just from the feedback I got, and it's always amazing. Your shows are always amazing, and I mean, I know we want to pose questions to the whole group about what's kind of currently going on in the world, but I just have to say that Journey to Truth also involves holding this kind of integrity in the face of a lot of dysfunction within the community. I mean, I don't want to name names, but we hear all sorts of people saying things that are not looking to heal or repair, that are making it a lot harder, no matter how much one just is attempting to do that. And I see that happen to a lot of us. And I saw it recently happening to you guys, and then going through the you know who. I just know everybody who gives feedback, it just can't even believe it, because everybody who has ever met you and listened to you guys, just it's just so obvious that this is not coming from a good place. So calling out false narratives, asking questions that are the hard questions for people that might be taking us down a path that we should question. The defensiveness is a huge red flag. I mean, it's and then to still, you know, attempt to hold community together, and where it just seems very difficult for people to be asked those difficult questions and still want to stay a community when we should be asking those tough questions. So if you guys want to speak on that, and Brad too, I know Brad, you don't get pulled into this kind of stuff, but we all kind of witness this. What are your thoughts lately, and how are you kind of handling the recent blow?
I don't look at it as a blow. I just think it's everyone's true colors surfacing. It's really interesting, you know, along the way, we started this journey because we were inspired and motivated by all of the figures in the community and all the people putting in the hard work and the bravery and everything. And you know, all of those people helped us get to where we are today. And it's just amazing the way things have worked out. And along the way, sometimes some people just aren't who you thought they were. And that's just anywhere in life. That really doesn't have anything to do with this so-called community. That's just anywhere in life. Not everyone is who you think they are, you know? And that's just the reality of the situation sometimes that you have to deal with. And sometimes it sucks getting your name dragged through the mud or whatever the case is, but I'm not here to play the victim to that. We're here to shift that frequency. I feel like it's really easy just to, there's been times where I just want to throw in the towel. I'm like, man, is this even worth it? You know, sometimes you're getting stabbed in the back by people, or just people are making videos about you, and you know it's not true, but it stings a little bit, and you want to throw in the towel, and people are confused. They don't know what to believe. So, but the universe always shows me something. It gives me a sign to just tell me to keep going in those moments every time I start doubting if we should continue doing this or not. And there's always something that happens that's very clear. It's like, no, you're on the right path. You have to keep going. So then I realized, well, this is a perfect opportunity just to be a voice of reason in amongst the confusion. Create a platform where people can come and decide for themselves, and we're not telling anyone what to believe. We're just presenting the information, giving people a stage, whether their story is true or not. That's for the audience to decide. And we're on this journey just with everyone else. People have these expectations for us that we're supposed to vet these people and do this and do that, and you know, we should be better researchers. We're lazy researchers, blah blah blah. But we're on this journey, and there's no paper trail for half of this information. You can't go look up these claims. You can't go look up these testimonies, because people are blowing the whistle on programs that aren't supposed to exist. So you can't really vet the information sometimes in ways that people want you to. And there's no magic evidence out there that's just going to change a skeptic's mind. There's not. If you show them something, they're going to complain about something else. And then that's when it goes to the healing journey and the inner work, because they're telling you more about themselves than they are about you. You know, we have so many people that come in and try to tell us how we should be doing things, but that's just a projection. And really, it's just, you know, you have to realize that these people aren't really angry at you. they're angry at themselves. And it's just, you can see the unhealed wounds and the trauma, the deep rooted trauma from past lives and childhood that hasn't quite been addressed. And I see right now, like I said earlier, everyone's true colors are surfacing, and all of that trauma and that wounding is surfacing. And if you don't really have a good reference point, you don't understand what's happening, you're going to start going kind of crazy, and you're going to start becoming angry and getting angry at other people. But it's actually not the other people that are making you mad. It's really yourself at the end of the day, if that's the feelings that you're having. And you have to identify your triggers and realize, why am I being triggered? Be completely self-aware in the moment, and realize that that trigger is showing you something. What's it showing you? Like, instead of getting triggered and getting mad at that person, get triggered and say, okay, why did that make me mad? Why did I get so triggered by that? And then you have to, self-evaluate and all this stuff. I can go on and on and on, but it's really just navigating the chaos right now. But it's every day I just have to remind myself that it's about staying self-aware and being self-aware, because if you're not self-aware, what are you? You're giving your power away. So you have to be completely conscious of every decision and every move you're making at all times, because we can hurt people sometimes by the subconscious actions that we do and the subconscious things that we say. So anyway, I'll stop there because I could keep going and going, but
that's just the perfect, kind of answer. And that's the space that you guys hold. And that's why you're like such the glue that keeps so many together. And like you said, it's such as life. It's everywhere. Anyway, Brad.
Yeah, just to touch on what Aaron and Tyler presented at their Journey to Truth conference, that it's really a multifaceted approach to try to come to terms with all this information that we're being hit with. And yeah, there's going to be disinformation out there. There's going to be people who are just getting in it to showboat and try to get famous and make stuff up. And we're already in a field that's considered fringe. So it's really up to us as a self-policing collective here to really separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And to on this journey to truth, I like to keep using that term, that we're here to find out what's real here. And we're talking about one of the most important subjects that anybody could endeavor to understand. And now this whole drip of disclosure has become a pretty steady stream in light of the new revelations that have just came out in the last 2 weeks. Ever since the Journey to Truth conference, we have this whistleblower from the intelligence community named David Grush, who has this incredibly explosive testimony that he worked on worked on contractors who were backward engineering craft, had seen some of the down craft, is saying that they're extraterrestrial. This was a little seen story because the mainstream media won't touch it. But I think it's the white hats that are putting this out there because they know that disclosure is going to change everything. And so this guy, David Grush, he obviously has been given permission to start talking about this information. And this is just what I had said before about Alex Collier. He's been totally vindicated for all he said. And all of us in the UFO field who have been talking about these subjects, we've also been vindicated. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. This is reality. So this is the most important subject any of us could endeavor to write about, discuss, go to conferences and speak, or just personal discovery, because this now connects us with the extraterrestrial reality and being contacted, not just in the last few years, but really throughout the entirety of the human experience is now right here on our doorstep. We have all the information we need to say, yeah, this is our new reality. These ships were recovered. Backward engineering is a reality. And we're going to be seeing a lot more of these kind of revelations. I think David Grush has opened the door for other whistleblowers to start coming out. And Laura, you were at the Journey to Truth last year when all the speakers came out of the Secret Space program and bringing these revelations forward. This is just going to start turning into the crack in the dam that opens even wider, and more of these revelations come out. So I think if history is going to look back on this moment, these kind of conferences and speakers are going to be looked at as heroes of our age, because they were telling this information to the world and taking a lot of slings and arrows, getting a lot of name calling and taking a lot of slack for bringing this out. But it's really the zeitgeist of the age. This is really what it's all about. This is humanity being revealed as having more to the picture than we could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
Brad, you know, it was funny. I was actually at Contact in the Desert when they announced that on a Monday. I think I was in the Graham Hancock intensive, and they interrupted him to tell everybody that was breaking, and everybody was looking on their phones. And I think it's pretty well timed. And coincidentally, the information about Biden's connections with getting paid off also dropped on the same day. So I did see the UFO stuff was taking precedence over Biden's information, and I truly believe that's why it came out so hardcore.
Yeah.
Guys?
I was actually going to chime in and say that exact same thing. Like the timing is very interesting because, I mean, it's a lot. We have like the whistleblowers coming out, then the UFO crashes in Vegas. Then you have the two ETs, the people apparently caught on film. It's blurry, but you can see them. And then you have another guy coming forward talking about we've been reverse engineering at least 12 craft for decades now, and even flying them, and they're bigger on the outside, or they're bigger on the inside than they are on the outside. All this information, all right now. You have the press club in DC, all at the same time that the Hunter Biden information is coming out.
Coincidentally.
And it's like, you know, look here, not there, but it's still amazing that we're getting that the narrative is shifting in our field, because it makes things a lot easier. So they shoot themselves in the foot all the time by, you know, their tactics and their war strategies and everything. But at the end of the day, I think it's a positive thing. But it's important to recognize that a lot of this stuff can be a distraction, and what's the real motive behind it, because they could have been reporting this stuff for decades already. Why now? Just the past month, you know, or whatever. So it's great. I think it's inevitable. The times are shifting, and I think we have a bright future ahead of us as far as that goes. But
what about you, Laura?
I know there's a lot always breathing down our neck with the next wave of, I mean, we can say what we want on this show. Viruses.
Well, they said we can legally actually talk about it now, even on YouTube.
I know, it's like really wild, right? It's like,
yourself.
whoa, oh my gosh. Yeah, and I hear from clients and people that are teachers and substitute teachers that they get trained to indoctrinate, and they also are being prepared for zombie apocalypse. That's actually in some of the videos. So we have this kind of stuff breathing down our neck while all this just information is coming out to the public, right? So like Tyler said, it's been kept from us. So you got the good ones that we know, that we feel into, that are exposing things like the fake alien invasion, that are going to be, you know, 2 steps ahead of disclosure, because we've been, and they've been a part of a greater community that's been talking about it for longer than our governments. So once they hear these key words and they begin to research it, there's a lot of information that they're going to come across before they're going to take everything at face value when it comes through, you know, what they've trusted as answering to the system and the outer authority. So I think that's really on our side. And also our awakening to what we're really made of, upgrading our DNA, holding a higher frequency in the face of all this, embodying it and integrating it. And that's why I love the way, because I get smeared and all that kind of crap too, that I don't see it like that either. I just use that word. But it's always an opportunity to advance ourselves in the face of something trying to stop us, just like anything outside of us that wants to censor us. You know, in the face of that, we're not victimized. In the face of that, we draw greater strength, we find greater resources, we do things more on our own terms, and we have no dependency on it whatsoever. We don't need those platforms. And even if this were to drop away, it's just the resourcefulness of a spirit warrior is so much greater than anything, because that is what the awakening to me is all about. that
Mhm.
we're here to rediscover what they don't want us to remember. And that's why they're so threatened, because then they lose a grip. Then we're the advanced technology that the dark weaponry can't touch. So that's where I feel we're at. And so it's all that exposure while also doing that inner work and holding the kind of values and principles that you were sharing, Tyler, and that you embody, Brad and Drago as well. And this and that it's just a work, it's a part of the daily maintenance, and just the humility that is required to be receptive, to be able to ask the right questions, to not just go along with anything, but to really develop that truth frequency so your bullshit meter works, so that we can discern and navigate the madness and do it together with mutual love and respect. And any kind of division is a huge red flag, because that is a part of the greater agenda. And we can only hope and pray that they'll come back around, no matter who it is. Because once you break that and the social engineering and the duality game of it all, you're that much more on the path. No matter what bioweapons might have hit you, no matter how much you've been compromised, that changes the frequency of yourself. It puts you in higher dimensions where the physics are different, where miracles and alchemy and transformation is possible. So I'll leave it at that. But what about you, Drake? That was kind of a long answer, but
everything all you guys are saying, I 100% believe. And Tyler, I believe this is why they're wrapping up the attacks on you, and the gatekeepers are coming out and they're pushing all these narratives and they're making these claims, because people like you are important. And I've seen this directly. I've seen them delete your Twitter. I go on your podcast and there's a bunch of missing YouTube videos, like episodes are gone. So they're attacking everybody, and it's consistent with you. It's very consistent with you and Aaron. Since 2018, what was it? The Dimensions of the Disclosure convention you guys met?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What was that moment between you guys that actually launched the whole journey to truth, man?
It was, I don't even know if you want to call the moment. It was my dad and I were going, the conference is a conference. It was amazing up in Colorado, and it was so beautiful outside. We wanted to go for a hike. It's great to sit in there for the speakers, but we just didn't want to be inside. So my dad and I decided to go for a hike, and I saw Aaron, didn't really know him yet. And we just kind of ran into him. Like, at conferences, you don't really know people, but everyone's friends. So I was like, hey, you want to go for a walk with us? He's like, sure. And that's what started. And we just became friends, realized that we lived in the same hometown. And after that, the rest was history. So it's just kind of nonchalantly, inviting them onto a hike is how all that happened. But yeah, the censorship and all that stuff, it's real. But it's it kind of shows you, it's validating in a way, the badge of honor sometimes. You're doing the right thing. Sometimes you feel like you're screaming into the wind. A lot of us are sometimes, but there's nothing that can stop the truth, and there's nothing that can stop you if you're in it for the right reasons, and if you're operating from that heart space. And that's just what we do. And whatever the future holds, we don't know, but we're here for it.
How did it make you feel when they actually deleted your Twitter?
Oh, I mean, I can list all the platforms: Twitter, Venmo, PayPal, Instagram, Facebook.
So you guys are
Linktree.
monetized?
Are you on YouTube still? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, believe it or not, we're on YouTube. We're hanging on by a thread. We have one strike left before they take us down, so we're walking on eggshells over there. But over time, we've gotten a lot of those accounts back. But it sucks at first, because you spent all that blood, sweat, and tears building your audience, and everyone knows this. And all of a sudden, just like someone pulls the rug out from under you, and you're back to zero. You're back to the starting point, and you have to start over again. And getting all those people back, it's difficult. But here we are. It's like they can just keep playing whack-a-mole. We're just going to keep popping up somewhere else. And that's all it is. And they would love, like, I've seen people just hang it up and leave the community and throw their arms up and whatever. And they love when people do that. They absolutely love when people do that. That's the entire reason all this stuff is in place anyway, to shut people up. So as soon as someone decides, I'm not doing this, I'm going to go work here, 40-hour job, I'm just done with all that nonsense. They're probably celebrating, the dark controllers, So I use that as motivation too. Every time I see someone walk away, I'm like, nope, not me, not us. Like, we are not going anywhere. And as a matter of fact, we have big plans for Journey to Truth, and I think it's only going to get bigger and brighter, and I'm really excited about it. So,
Yeah, I noticed you guys are extremely resilient. I think you guys had the Secret Space Conference in May of last year, and
yeah,
then Journey to Truth now. So no matter, I mean, you guys are really spreading it and like really making a difference. And no matter what they're doing, you keep popping back up, like you're saying with that whack-a-mole.
yeah, it's just whatever. It's a passion project. It's my life now. I can't even imagine life another way. Like this is what it's become, and I feel like for the first time ever, I have purpose. Like we go through the whole life in our cardboard cutout version of ourselves, and nobody really knows who they are. You're always looking for purpose. You're joining this club or this group or something, and you're getting promoted at work because you want to feel important. And all that stuff's really irrelevant until you go on the awakening journey, and then find something that truly gets your blood flowing, that truly moves you, and you can be truly passionate about and mean it and do everything from the heart and just love what you do. I found that, and I'm not gonna, I can't imagine any other way. So I'm grateful for that. But I feel like I've been doing all the talking, so let Brad say something.
Yeah, no, I do feel you. I wanted to just ask Brad, I know you probably have thoughts on all this, but you had this publishing company for a long time. You've put out Escaping Prison Planet and just so many kind of books, and you publish like Leo Zagami. You're going to be publishing my book. I mean, it's just amazing that you have your own publishing company that gets that material out. And I mean, before you might go into that and that journey, obviously any thoughts about what's been shared so far?
Well, like Tyler said, I can't imagine doing anything else. I find this is the most rewarding and enriching thing I could be doing with my life right now. And it just continues to amaze me when the books get out there and they get legs of their own. It's sort of like you'll see, Laura, when Awakening the Truth Frequency comes out in the spring, it's like giving birth to a child, and it has legs of its own, and people come to know you in a different way through your words in the books. And we were working on the foreword this morning, and gives this perspective of you and the Eisenhower family that a lot of people, I think, are going to be very interested to hear about. And you're coming out with some really groundbreaking revelations about what Eisenhower knew and how he had to threaten to use the First Army to take over the Area 51 if he wasn't allowed access. So this has been going on for over 70 years. This struggle with the military-industrial complex, which Eisenhower said in his farewell address in 1961. And isn't it amazing how present his words are today? We're going through that. And he was quite the patriot who saw that liberty and freedom were something that had to be fought for, and this industrial complex was working against those means. And now we exactly see this scenario coming out with the cabal and everything else. So what we're endeavoring to do comes with a price. So, as Tyler said, losing channels, losing payment platforms. I too got my Facebook account hacked a month and a half ago. Can't get it back. I had over 10,000 followers and a whole bunch of pages with other thousands of followers. And the guy's phone number was from Nigeria. So it's just crazy how much resistance there is to this narrative, which is just trying to get information out that's relevant to everybody alive on the planet today.
Yeah.
So that's why I think being in this field and working with you, Laura, is just a very rewarding prospect, and speaking at conferences. And oh, by the way, Tyler, I was on the Forbidden Archaeology panel with Graham Hancock on one side and Linda Moulton Howe on the other. So two giants in the field. Here I am.
You are
speaking before and after these two. And I told them that I said on the panel a week ago, I was at Journey to Truth, and Tyler and I led a group out to the Cahokia Mounds, and we met this incredible local historian that met up with us not once at Cahokia Mounds and did some talks, but he took us out to this other mound site called the Emerald Mound I'd never heard about. And so we did these trips aside. But the point was, when you go to these locations like Cahokia Mounds, you get a different perspective when you're actually there, because you're walking on it. You're standing on top of the Monk's Mound. You can see downtown St. Louis from there. And there's so many mysteries that are enveloped in these locations, including what the guy had told us. They had found 2 giant skeletons right there at Cahokia Mounds with the double rows of teeth and the 6 fingers and 6 toes, clearly not human, but human-like, much, much taller as well. And I said, well, what about in the visitor center? He said, yeah, you could go talk to the archaeologist in the visitor center. They're going to deny it exists. So part of this journey to truth is also understanding our human origins and understanding this long journey on this planet of the human race. And that's why these are esoteric subjects. And I cover suppressed human origins in a chapter in my book, Beyond Esoteric: Escaping Prison Planet. And I think it's just as important for people to understand as the UFO subject as well.
Yeah, and just really quick, just to add to the Cahokia thing. So we are actually putting a documentary together right now as we speak, on the Cahokia Mounds, the untold story. We started doing interviews and collecting footage, filming stuff in 2019. COVID hit and kind of it took a back seat, but we dug it back up and we're putting it together now. And let me tell you, it's awesome. Like, I'm excited. It's rewriting the history for North America. I don't know how we're going to release this. It was just going to be a small Patreon thing, but now that I'm seeing it come to fruition, I'm like, this needs to be something a little bigger. Brad's in it, obviously, but it's pretty awesome. It's going to retell the history. It just tells a whole new story, a story that's never been told publicly anyway.
And that's exactly it, that this new information that's coming out about forbidden archaeology has been ruthlessly suppressed. Look at what they've done to Graham Hancock with his new series on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse. He was showing it in his presentation at Contact in the Desert, of all the platforms, of all the quotes, of all the other archaeologists that are just coming out and calling him racist, calling him hating women, all these things. It's like, how can I do that? I'm married to a woman of color, and she comes to all these sites with me. And then he went into his, oh, wow, what an expert presenter. This guy is just going to go down in history as one of the legends of disclosure. How articulate it was and how much evidence he produced to say, look, we have another story to humanity that has largely been edited out. As his famous quote is, humanity is a species with amnesia. We just don't remember our past. And when you try to bring it out with all the evidence that Graham Hancock and ourselves include, boy, is it met with resistance. Just as this whole discussion about UFOs and extraterrestrials has been for many decades, but now it's all coming out as being true. So Graham Hancock will be vindicated. He already is, actually, in fact. But what a mastermind, and someone who was very humble, and he was taking pictures with people afterwards. Not a lot of speakers will interact with the crowd in that way. And to me, that just says this is a very authentic person, that he is really in it for the same reasons we are, because it's so important that humanity knows its true history and story about where we've been and where we're going.
Right.
Yeah, they really bank on just gossip and have people fall for it, just like a high school mentality of, oh, so-and-so said this, so it must be true. And like what they were doing with Trump, just if it came through the news and they're saying this, we won't even look any deeper. We won't even find out on our own terms. It's like, or the inability to get to know a person and see for yourself is just wild. That, yeah. And Drago's story, it's just, having this incredible accident and bringing in all these greater abilities and having that get shut down, and just all that he's discovering from QHHT and the real life sessions he's happening that reveal the galactic history or the greater stories and the experiences of what it means to be a MyLab or have MK Ultra. And I know in the conferences and the research and just some of your own experiences of getting in touch with memories. We're going to do a separate show just to dig into that. You know, how our real experiences are just being shut down. So, you know, Drago, just, you know, with that experience and what that opened you up to, and the kind of people that in real life you're hearing what they're saying, which is different than something you read at the internet of, oh, that's conspiracy theory. This is coming out of the mouths of people that are in a hypnotic, you know, it's like to take away the soul expression should be enough of a red flag for everybody to see that this censorship is insane, because it's so across the board, including you, Drago, if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, and the way this QHHT works is when we put you in trance, we go to the somnambulistic state of trance. That's the right side of the brain. So you are incapable of telling lies. Storytelling is cut off. You can see this on EKG machines. You can put the EKG on the head. You can read what hertz they're in through this. So Tyler, people like you that's been abducted, it opened me up. QHHT opened me up to listen to people like you. And instead of treating people like you, where you're like, you feel like you're ostracized and you feel awkward talking about these things, I jumped head on. Like when I met you at the Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection, first time I ever met you, I went right up to you. I told you who I was, and I just, no censors whatsoever. And I followed your story for a long time. And some of the issues you have, I truly feel I can help you with QHHT and all the memory loss you have, and discovering those hybrid kids you have. Man, you have no idea what QHHT can do. And like, you can use this for people in the secret space program. Paul Hynek mentioned me 3 times in his talk at Contact in the Desert, because we had a previous conversation about QHHT and how he can use people like me to help him verify these other sides of reality, and to use a scientific model to put it on paper, to do that, to verify these as real. So I would love to do that, man, for you sometime. Have you ever had a QHHT session?
I've had 6 of them actually, with 6 different people. Luckily, I'm in a position of hosting a podcast, and I get gifted these sessions from a lot of the people that we interview. So it's not like I had to spend all the money to do that. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have, because you know they're pricey sometimes. But and it's been incredible what's come through. I have all of them recorded and written down, and I don't share any of that stuff really ever. Because I still was just never, I don't know, it's weird. You always walk away from the session wondering, like, did I make all that up? Like, or is that real? You know, it's like you always just have that's the thought that's always in the back of my head. So it's documented, but I don't share it as fact because, like I said, there's no way I can go out there and prove it. Like, if I just start telling everyone this happened and this exists and I was here on Mars doing this and this planet, whatever, I can't prove that. I don't, you know, unless I just show them the session. So I don't really talk about it. But yeah, I have explored that, and I'd love to. I like what you said about like being put into a state where you can't lie, where you can't make it up, like, and you actually have a way to test that. So that's really interesting to me. And like the abduction stuff. Actually, I think I was just abducted like a month ago before the conference too. It was really interesting. But and me and my roommate, and he had a weird experience that night as well. But shit happens.
Intuitively, I feel that you've been abducted maybe since a kid, and you were identified maybe around birth. So it wouldn't surprise me if you've had lifelong abductions, and this is why you got into ufology and you started following these clues. I mean, suffering from sleep paralysis and dream infiltration, those are SOP for the government.
Yeah.
That's what they do to assets. That's what they win these abduction cases. You're missing time from ESETI for like, I think it was a 3 or 4 hours from 2 to 6 a.m. or something. You were just randomly had missing time. And I don't believe it's a coincidence. I believe that people like me, you're just discovering things about your past you never knew about. And it vilifies your journey of becoming who you are and figuring out that it wasn't just random, and all these things you're obsessed with. And Brad, you talk a lot about ancient civilizations. I truly believe you were there, because they say that the things we are obsessed with, we experience them, and no one else can understand stuff like that. Like this deep passion, all 4 of us have. Like
Brad was one of the giants. He still is.
I heard that joke that Johnny Enoch made on that panel. That was super funny.
Oh, I didn't even hear the panel or the joke, but
Yeah, basically Johnny Enoch was hosting the panel that Brad's talking about, and he made a joke and said, I'm paraphrasing, something along the lines that Brad's discovered giants in Antarctica, and the proof was he just sent me a selfie from him in Antarctica.
Right.
Yeah, he called me Branunaki. I guess that's my new conference name.
That's so funny, man.
I like it. That's good.
But you make a good point because, well, not only I've heard it said that we carry our genetics lifetime to lifetime, so we kind of look similar to what we did in previous lifetimes, and also our stature, and usually gender is the same, although sometimes you might have an experience just to understand what it's like to live in the sacred feminine body. But I think you have a good point that we have a memory of living in these ancient civilizations. And one of the questions on the panel was about Atlantis and where they thought this sunken continent would be. And of course, people talked about Plato's account beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and how the ancient Egyptians knew about this civilization. They're the ones that told Solon, who told Plato about this lost continent. And I spoke about the sunken ruins in my workshop off the coast of Cuba, where it was found about a decade ago. A whole city that looks like a Mayan pyramid, plaza, central pyramid, very similar to Cahokia, Tyler. It's remarkable how many parallels there are with Central American cultures, with the mound cultures that we discovered at Cahokia, but conventional archaeologists won't have any of it. Not like you can't just take a canoe down the Mississippi to get to the Gulf of Mexico and follow it to the Yucatan and
Right.
do a journey quite skillfully to go to some of these cultures. And of course, they were trading goods, and seashells from the Gulf of Mexico have been found at Cahokia and in other locations. Obsidian from Wyoming was traveled widely. It was best used for using arrowheads, as well as macaw feathers, which those birds only live in tropical climates, and they were also traded. So the emerging picture is one called cultural diffusion instead of isolationism. And there was a lot of cultural diffusion on the American continent with Central America, even South America, trade routes, including the Incan Road in South America and other trade routes that came clear up to the Southwest. And they even played the ball game, the same ball game that was used by the Mayans. You can find that at Wapatki in Arizona, a ball court, still well preserved. So all these similarities is showing a very robust exchange of culture and information, yet it doesn't want to be admitted to by these same archaeologists that are coming down on Graham Hancock and calling him a racist because he said that that the bearded merchant in Central America, who we largely understand to be the Quetzalcoatl, has characteristics of a white person, having a beard. Many Native American people, as we know, American Indians don't have facial hair. So he's just saying, look, it appears to be a Caucasian. He said this in one of the episodes of Ancient Apocalypse, and boy, they just piled on him as being a racist, and he's married to a woman of color. So it just makes no sense.
The funny thing is,
protecting a narrative. That's what I think it's all about. Same with this disclosure in the U2 UFO field, that they're trying to protect a narrative that we're so alone, we're isolated out here on planet Earth. Maybe they're out there, but it would be too hard for them to come here. We're using the same parameters of traveling, using space not as a barrier, but as a means of traveling to distant locations, just as the oceans were. That cultural diffusionism is also true with extraterrestrials coming here from far away. But what I always like to point out in interviews is we're often told, oh, extraterrestrials coming from some faraway planet. Well, what about right below our feet? What about inner terrestrials that have been here on planet Earth this whole time? and ultra terrestrials that have the ability to transcend through dimensions. So there's so much more to this subject that we're only scratching the surface of right now, that is still going to start coming out in the coming years now in the disclosure movement. And it's a picture of a widely populated universe, and Earth has been this central hub out on the far arm of our Milky Way galaxy for many millennia. And we've been known about, of course, and they work with technology that traveling from star system to star system, even galaxy to galaxy, is definitely within the realm of possibilities. And this is, again, coming out in these new revelations by this whistleblower named David Grush. And I can't emphasize enough how important this is, because now you have an officially recognized, he's been vetted as someone who has come out of working in these programs, speaking publicly. So I guess it also brings up the point we spoke of earlier, is why now? Why is all this disclosure coming out now when we've known since Roswell in 1947, some 75 years ago, that we've been collecting these crash retrievals that David Grush has come out and confirmed, yes, of course we have. And no wonder they've been top secret, because we're backward engineering 0 point energy, free energy, and the ability to travel among the stars. So this is one of the most important revelations that have come out in recent years. And I kind of have to wonder, and Laura, maybe you can chime on this tomorrow together, because tomorrow we're on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks, and she wants to talk about this. And maybe it's a precursor to Project Bluebeam, that we're just being conditioned to think that the ETs and UFOs have,
it seems like there's a lot of warm up. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I mean, there's a lot of warm up when the person with the webcam that's seeing this, what looks like a tall white or some sort of gray. And like, okay, now we're going to listen to people that are spotting UFOs or spotting ET. Okay, we've been talking about this for so long. How many people have come out? And it's documentaries that you're going to see on Amazon and Netflix. And so what? People are just going to the movies and missing that there's been tons of documentaries, the seeding, about the hybrid children. I mean, that's all available. It's right under everybody's nose, and they're waiting for the headline coming from the news validating it. They can't even explore something that's like been here for so long. So it absolutely does feel like that. I know Drago had some thoughts about what you just shared. And I was just going to say about white skin and this whole indoctrination program. There's indigenous cultures all over the world of many different colors. The ancient Celtics had, a lot of them had red hair and white skin, and they were considered an indigenous culture. When we talk about native, it's not, it doesn't just look one particular way. So yeah, these narratives are out of control, and the common sense should be alerting people. It's not conspiracy, but it'll be interesting to talk tomorrow. But it seems those with the voice of reason that are coming out now, it's almost like it's such a critical time that people can't sit on this any longer. But at the same time, it's been out there for so long too. But it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds. But Drago, it looked like you had something to say, or Tyler, about what Brad just shared.
You want to go first, Tyler?
No, go ahead.
Man, mixing all these subjects together, you mentioned how Graham Hancock's been getting attacked a lot, Brad, and that's why I call him an anarchaeologist. I think that's an original word. I don't think it exists.
I like that.
I've seen him as the anarchaeologist because he's like you, man. Like, you both go against modern narratives. You both try to make people look and discover this information themselves. Like Sacred Places North America, you talk about all these civilizations that are here that we're ignoring. And I believe we will make more momentum in ufology and discovering who we are if we just discover the United States and stop focusing on everything else. Because you mentioned Graham gets attacked for mentioning white gods. Think about this. The first god that the Sumerian tablets talk about is Quetzalcoatl, which is Thoth. He comes down. He's also known as Kukulkan. He's known as Oans in Babylonian. And the native Mayans described him as white. a bearded white skin and a tall, almost like a tall white. Like that's the classical Anunnaki form right there. Like after the Pyramid Wars, when Thoth left, he went straight to South America. But we're starting to find out with all these places in Bolivia and Pumapuku that these places are way more ancient than we ever imagined. And they're way older than pre-Diluvian. And I believe that there has been more than one flood. And people always focus on a singular flood. And I think if people can understand that we've had so many events, like you talk about the off the ruins of Cuba, there's been so much tectonic activity from plate subduction that this earth has been toppled so many times. And I believe that once we discover everything in America, the mounds, the pyramids, we're starting to be allowed to be in the Grand Canyon, because I believe they took the Grand Canyon and they made it a national park, part of it off limits, because they found something there we're not allowed to see. Same thing with Antarctica, the no-fly zone. Again, there's like, what, a couple thousand people there a year, I think you were talking about in one of your lectures. And like, why would there not be a no-fly zone? Like, maybe because there's a big ass hole in Antarctica, just like in the North Pole. And one of my theories I wanted to talk to you about, Brad, is you say these cosmic rays come out at a 30-degree angle. Right. And everybody knows the Aurora Borealis, and you like to talk about Aurora Australis a lot. And what I've known is, Tyler, you talk about the electric universe and how everything's connected with Laniakea. I truly believe that the planet, at the core of our Earth, there is, I don't think it's a solid core like we've been described. And what I'm learning with QHHT, I truly believe that this planet is a torus field. And this central core of energy that's connected to this central root of Laniakea that goes to the central sun, I believe it's emanating energy out on the poles of the planet. And this is why we see the different storms on Saturn and Jupiter and stuff, because you're starting to see that there's actually openings on all these planets. And I believe if they didn't have openings, all the planets it would all be extreme volcanism. That's why there's like 91 active volcanoes in Antarctica, Brad. That's pretty extreme. And coincidentally, it's right there where all the plate subduction happened and where the continents merged together from the west into the east, making that big mountain range right in the middle. You know, so many things, but I know what you guys mean. All the evidence is in our face, and they're like, look this way. And we were talking about how coincidentally this video just comes out on Monday. It was on Fox News on Monday. Do you know that Murdoch would have to personally approve this ET video in advance, and their board would have to talk about this in advance? So this information was already available. And like I said, it came out of nowhere. It was on every major news station, to the point where I would show people and they're like, let me see the source. I want to make sure it's not like a fake website. I'm like, this shit is real, guys. It's on freaking Fox News for the first time telling the truth. So that tells everyone a lot.
The UFO wreck or whatever, I think it actually happened on May 1st or something. It didn't happen just the other day. That's what nobody realized. It just finally got reported. That could be wrong, but I just read that.
It actually sounds right.
Yeah, and that would make sense why it was already ready to go. But yeah, it's interesting. You're talking about the planet being like the toroidal field and all that stuff. And Brad, you went down to Antarctica. You saw there was no ice wall. You know, you debunked the flat Earth theory. I don't like spending time in the flat Earth theory, but I do have a theory of my own on why they're pushing it so hard. I've heard a couple of people say that flat earthers are living in the second dimension, a 2D reality. And I'm like, well, I started thinking, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. So if you have a corporation, potentially the Rand Corporation, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that they actually started the flat earth theory. If you were going to start a flat earth theory, what better way, if you know that the flat earth exists in the second dimension, what better way to counter the awakening and the ascension into the fourth and fifth dimension by getting everyone to believe in a flat earth and assist in their own devolution back into a 2D reality where the earth might even be flat. And that's why you can't argue with some of these people. And there's evidence of this in video games. the 2D video games, the side-scrolling video games, it was a flat disc. If there was a circle, it was a flat disc. As soon as the technology advanced and we had 3D video games, it became a sphere. The flat disc became a sphere now. That's the same thing with the 2D, second dimension, and then the 3D reality. It becomes spherical just by the law of the physics.
Right.
And then as you evolve in the fourth and the fifth dimension, it becomes even more holographic, I guess you could say, and it becomes less and less physical. But regardless, it's still that sphere shape. So what better way to counter the awakening than to get a large portion of the collective to believe in a flat earth, because they're no longer ascending, they're actually devolving.
Exactly.
They're assisting in their own devolution. And I think, well, it's genius. It's genius. And
Yeah.
yeah,
I just wanted to add, but I didn't want to cut you off.
you're good.
Just, yeah, like when we think about 5D, then we think of like 5G. 5D, when we look at the fifth element, is the ether. It's the dodecahedron platonic solid. It was in reversals, the symbolism of the inverted pentagram, and the whole concept of, 2D, which is very much lower chakra, still 3D, right? So even going into like 3D perspective would be more being able to see, things beyond, something flat. But then, yeah, if you look at just what these numbers really do represent, and you see the reactionary nature, that's very second chakra anyway. It's just, there's a link to all this because there's frequency behind, these limitations, and it's all about perspective and perception. So how can anybody argue about something that we should have the sovereign right to perceive on our own? There should be no debate, except for if you see it that way, great. I see it this way. If I look at that painting, I'm going to see something jump out that you might not see, but my way doesn't mean that that's the reality of what I'm seeing, and neither is yours. So
Right. And well, it's linked to the consciousness. So, and frequency. Some of these flat earth people that I've debated with, and I've actually gone too far down that rabbit hole. I wanted to see what they were saying. I'm curious. I like to see their theories, and some of it's very comical sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, oh, they have good points, but that doesn't actually prove anything. It's just a good point. But when you try to say something to these people, I realize it's like trying to reason with a narcissist. You just can't do it. They're coming from this like hierarchy place, like they put themselves on this pedestal, like they've already achieved the truth and they're better than everyone else who doesn't know that the earth is flat yet. And they come at you from this arrogant, condescending place, and it always resorts to name calling, and it's a super low vibe. And that's exactly the vibe that theory has brought them down into. You're never gonna encounter a spiritually enlightened person who believes in a flat earth. Like, I truly don't think you were. If you're truly on that journey, like it really has everything to do with frequency and vibration. And I'm not dogging on anybody who has considered that the earth might be flat, or they might even believe in it. But I'm just saying all this to be aware, to help people understand that, like, these are the lengths we'll go to right now to stop what's coming.
We're multidimensional beings, that's what we're waking up to, and we're a replica of the true planetary grid network in the multidimensional cosmos. We're a replica of it. So when we're in that limited belief system, then we are co-creating a limited existence. We're waking up to the fact that we're multidimensional. So is the Earth. The stargates on the planet connect with the star systems. Planetary energies connect with our organs. I mean, we're connected to all of it. Yeah, so it is absolutely like wonderful point. Anybody else want to chime in about all that?
Well, and it's coming to light that the flat earth is a big psyops. Isn't it interesting that 15 years ago, nobody talked about that? It just came out of nowhere. There were all these really slick videos. And like you, Tyler, I've dug down the rabbit hole and probably spent way more time than I should have looking into this. And that was one of the reasons I went to Antarctica to disprove this whole ice wall theory, because it really falls apart if you include Antarctica in the flat earth cosmology about our planet, because they need to have an endpoint, an ice wall that surrounds the world. And I'm here to tell you it does not exist.
And it also debunks the secret space program too, because they think that space doesn't exist.
That's right.
So,
and you can't fly past the radiation belt, and humans have never been in outer space. And that's just silly talk. I mean, of course, the astronauts have been up there and they still are. And we've done so much more. And that's the good point, Tyler, because then it also opens up the whole possibility of the Mars program, which Laura was involved in, and humans in outer space, as Richard Doling calls the breakaway civilization, that you have humans that are now living their entire lives being born off planet and living their entire lives outside of Earth, becoming this breakaway civilization. So Earthlings have taken this whole new dimension here in spacefaring and colonizing other planets. But at the same time, what an interesting period to be alive, because there are still uncontacted tribes deep in the Amazon and Papua New Guinea highlands. And we're all human beings, right? And we have a collective memory amongst us that I think we can feel and perceive, that we have some of our kind off planet. And we can perceive that some of us are still living in the Stone Age, and they're going to go get their dinner tonight using a blow dart to drop a monkey out of a tree. That's how people live in this world still today.
Right.
So it's just incredible, this period that we're in. And so I think the flat earth was used as a way to just muddy the waters, to get us to argue over other things that weren't important, when there's so many important things that we really should be pining in on. And most recently, Juan O'Sullivan has come out and said he's been able to trace the money, several $1 million, about 15 years ago when they started producing these videos, to DARPA. And Gene Decode has said the same thing, that this is a great big psyops to just get us arguing over nothing. And who then is calling the shots with DARPA? And some of those trails lead to the Jesuits. And isn't it interesting that everything in this flat earth cosmology uses biblical terms, such as the sky and the stars being the firmament? That's a word used in the Bible. So this would also trace to the Jesuits as being these master disinformants. And Leo Lyons-Zagami, who made an appearance at Contact in the Desert, he's one of our authors at CCC Publishing. I want him to do a book called The Black Pope, because we did a book from Leo Zagami called The Last Pope about Francis. But the Black Pope is the head of the Jesuits. And boy, have they just had their finger in so many things that have influenced Western civilization. So it should come as no surprise that they would also have a hand in this flat earth theory as well.
The black nobility is controlling a lot of narratives, and the black nobility is above the Pope. It's the white Pope and the black Pope. The black Pope is, I would say the Pope is like, he has no true power. He's like the person selected to be the mouthpiece, kind of like the Queen of England. Technically, if you trace her history, she does kind of own maybe 70% of the planet due to manifest destiny, and that's real. Kind of like when we pay our taxes or our law system, it's all based in England. All of our taxes, when we pay our taxes, it's tribute to England.
That's right.
Isn't it? It's so funny. So we were, what were we? Oh, we've talked about so many threads. I'm trying to, sorry about someone's cutting grass next door, guys. I apologize.
Oh, like flat earth and just these psyops.
Hey, perfect. The flat op, Tyler, I proved it. I think I'm one of the very few people that prove flat earth is not real. You want to know how I proved it? QHHT.
You meditated?
No, I started proving it on video. I started recording. I obviously record client sessions.
Yeah.
And one of the top questions is that people have is about this flat earth stuff. So just for shits and giggles, I started incorporating that into my line of questions once that person dies. So with QHHT, you, Tyler, you've studied a lot of Dolores Cannon stuff. You've read a lot of her books. I've listened to you talking to shows and you're quoting stuff from her stuff verbatim. Pretty damn impressive. Should know that when you die, you step out of your body, you're wearing the same clothes you're wearing now. When you die, then suddenly you start leaving the earth, going through the universe, right? I started asking people to turn around right as they leave the earth and to explain it and to describe it. You know what I've never heard before? Flat earth descriptions. Makes no sense. So the flat earthers are like, if you think about it, all the stars are fake. That's what they say. All the planets are fake. They say it's stuck in the firmament, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what's outside of the firmament?
Nothing, I
Right?
guess. Nothingness.
Okay,
But,
you can't prove that.
I know.
Quantum physics, quantum mechanics, like, dude, you have to realize that all space is conscious and there is no, like, the point of the universe is right here, right now, this
Well,
moment. Like, you have to understand that. So outside of all this, it has to be constant expansion, constant division of the dimensions and the dualities, right? So
yes.
to say that we're covered in dirt and this is the firmament, and when the flat earthers launch the rockets, this is why the rocket hits the damn ceiling, they call it.
Yeah.
So does that mean we're basically gophers inside the earth?
Well, that's what they
Right.
want you to that's what they want you to believe. It makes you feel powerless and helpless, and kind of like when you're on an airplane and you're in that seat and the ceiling's right over your head, like you completely, it's like it's authoritarian. Like they have power over you in that plane. It takes away all your power. Same way, like it's the same concept. By putting you under that dome, it takes away all your power. But if we had a true understanding of the universe, the electric universe, and everything you just mentioned, and we had a foundation of truth to begin with, which we don't. But if we had a true understanding of all that stuff, this stuff would be undebatable because
I
we would
think
just
that's what we should do for stuff like your documentary and stuff like people needing to prove these stuff beyond cognitive dissonance. Like what I'm used to you was describing earlier is called, I call it the fluoride stare. You
yeah.
basically try to describe something to someone or show them evidence and they get violent. And you're seeing it in certain
Or
movements right now. You're not allowed to question any of the narrative. And if you do, you get literally attacked and they will come
Mhm.
at you hardcore. And that really
Right.
sucks that we're there. That's where we become. I mean, it's 2023. We're supposed to be super progressive and like, we're supposed to be getting past stuff. Like women only got writing the ability to vote like 70 years ago. If you think about it, the 1800s, we were like on stagecoaches and like using steam, man. Now we're traveling through the stars and like DARPA's invented all this technology and like, how can all this be possible within the span of a little over 100 years? You know, you find out the Antarctic Germans were going to the moon as early as I think 1938 when they were establishing their base. Like it's insane the amount of technology we have, and they make us think that like nothing's ever changed. Houses are still built the same. Plumbing is still built the same.
Vehicles.
Everything
Right.
is antiquated. Everything is so outdated, and they hold all this technology from us. And I feel that they can't hold it much longer. I think the metaphorical dam's about to explode.
Yeah.
You know, guys?
And it has for a lot of people. And the problem is because of the history book saying that we won the Second World War, everybody's complacent. They're like, oh, we already won that. We took care of the Nazis. We won the Second World War. That's what we learned in school. We learned about junk DNA. So the explorers, the archaeologists, you would think would be like, look at this groundbreaking information coming from people like Brad and like the shows that, you know, and the things that people are talking about. Like this would be considered something that you would revere. You know, scientists that are curious, that are looking to understand a greater physics or a greater understanding of the spirit realms, the higher dimensions. It's like, no, the indoctrination is so severe that they don't understand that the Second World War morphed into the war on consciousness, the war on the minds, a more massive social engineering program based in the mind control experiments, that those individuals that were in those projects and programs have alters that are running these influential positions as so-called leaders, as influential celebrities, as ones that are blackmailed to be the ones that everybody's watching and looking up to, where they're not even living their life. They don't even care. You know, if it came from them and celebrity says it, or the news guy says it, or the school books say it. And it's so sad because this complacency of thinking we won the war, and not understanding things like Project Paperclip or these projects or the Nazi scientists, they're able to just create these facades and people believe in it. Climate change, Black Lives Matter, it's all so progressive. Oh yeah, the gender confusion, that means that we're setting them free and letting them choose their identity. Well, you know, they're also choosing to be, you know, eat junk food and wear just Halloween costumes. And if they wanted to be like, you know, Winnie the Pooh, like all year long, are you going to get, you know, are you going to just give them a sex change to become a freaking cartoon character? I mean, it's like, these are children. It's like the common sense is completely gone. And I think it's because of the complacency of thinking we won the war. Everything since then is supporting our freedoms. And the censorship is because people like us are calling out the fact that that's not what's really happening. And they're so invested that it cracks their reality. And so it's like their ego just can't handle it, because all their rewards, all their certificates, all their degrees, everything that they ever stood for and achieved in their life, they can't begin to unpack. And what they could do is say, I learned all this. I have all these skills. Now let me talk to somebody like Brad Olsen, Graham Hancock, listen to Journey to Truth, find out about QHHT and how somebody can have an injury and open up to the fullness of like more than we can imagine. And it's just sad. Sorry, I'll stop my rant. But yeah, it'll get better somehow.
Good rant. I mean, you make a lot of valid points, and obviously we understand. Most of us understand exactly what you're saying as far as like, yeah, we can take it back to the World War II, but I think we could take it back way further than that. And it's interesting. This is something I wanted to say earlier about Atlantis. You notice how Atlantis is just kind of already, it's already in the collective consciousness. It's already there, right? It's weird. And everybody has past life memories from Atlantis, and everyone has a past life memory of doing something amazing in Atlantis. And it's everywhere. There's, it's even on cable. There's shows about it. But I think what they're trying to cover up with Atlantis is that we were a far more advanced civilization all the way up to a much later date. And this is where we get like the Tartaria stuff. And I think that there was another cataclysm that happened after all of that stuff in the very recent past, maybe even the 1800s, that the Atlantis narrative gets all the attention, because they want us thinking that that's when all this change actually happened, which I'm sure Atlantis was, did happen, and maybe the way it was, maybe the way they said it was, I don't know. But I think there was a recent catalyst that they don't want us to know about, a recent reset. And this is where we have footage of like the late 1800s, early 20s, early 1900s of this advanced technology that's been used in, all these buildings. These churches weren't actually churches. They were used for free energy devices. They collect the static of the atmosphere, the static electricity in the atmosphere, and they've harnessed it into free energy. There's things like that. It's just really interesting that everyone resorts back to Atlantis. And I think there was a much more advanced civilization that existed all the way up into the recent past.
You make a good point, Tyler, and this is the whole notion of Tartaria, that there was this advanced civilization that was covered with a mud flood. You could look at that as the pole shift. Quite a bit of evidence that many archaeological ruins were covered with mud. Even on the island of Malta, there's a cave that has mega fauna and large woolly mammoth type creatures that no longer exist today, just pushed in the back of the cave, and a whole layer of mud that would have swept over the entire island. So we have a history, a species with amnesia about a lot of this, these structures, what their real purpose was, but also the high technology that was employed by these high-tech civilizations. And I made a point of it on the Forbidden Archaeology panel, Contacting the Desert, saying that Atlantis was just the last in a series. There was the Hyperborean civilization that goes back millions of years. And in my book, Modern Esoteric, I have pictures of gears that were found in a seam of coal in Siberia dating back 3 million years.
I was going to mention.
So there's so much more to our history here on the planet. And of course, then there was Lemuria, which was before Atlantis, but also concurrent with it. It may have been these high-tech wars that took down these continents and created a pole shift where these continents sank, new continents rose, plate tectonics moved stuff around. And the other thing that I brought up in my Antarctica talk is that they found fossils proving that Antarctica had once been a steamy jungle. There's fossils of ferns and other dinosaur species that have been found nowhere else on Earth except for Antarctica. So what's under the ice and what civilizations had once been on this planet is also right up there in my book with the most important subjects that are coming out in the disclosure movement.
It's been just as varied as our mental, it's our unconsciousness. The junk DNA is higher harmonic universes.
Yeah.
The root races were established with the 5 cloister races, starseeds, to rebuild the 12-strand DNA template. And so, yeah, these more ancient wars, the loss of our galactic memories, the pyramid technology, losing connection with like the different star systems. I mean, the Orion War stepping down to the physical plane. It's like, yeah, sorry, you were going to say something, Tyler. But yeah, I mean, all of that is like the root of it. And then how the false flag, the psyops, the owning both sides of war, the hidden projects that came in, that's just the next level of these more ancient wars and battles that go way, way back, starting in Lyra. And how
Right.
we had the avatar consciousness. And so the loss of these teachings in our school books or memories is just as buried as these civilizations. And that
Right.
and that you bringing light to it is also switching on the unconscious and beginning to switch on the cellular memory and the soul experiences. So it's amazing. So anyway,
Right.
I think you were going to
Yeah.
say something, Tyler.
Well, a couple things. Real quickly, I was just in Punta Gorda, south of Belize, about 3 hours south of Belize, and we went to their pyramid site where the original Mitchell Hedges skull was apparently found. And um, there's actually gears. In the museum they found gears on that site, stone gears, like they have them in the museum. I don't see that artifact very much, And so what does that tell you? Very sophisticated. Um, but going back to the Atlantis stuff and then the QHHT. So what's interesting. This was part of my point about everyone has these past life memories of Atlantis, but it's always good, positive memories. Why does no one have, past life memories in general? Everyone's always talking about these amazing things, and they were Cleopatra, or they were this, or they were that, but what about like the axe murderers, and what did serial killer, what about the people who weren't that great? People have to have those past life memories too. So I almost wonder, like, what is there some sort of psyop going on in that arena as well, that people are only tapping into like this blueprint history, like you tap into these past lives that are in the collective consciousness. Because I know so many people who have had past life regressions who all claim that they were Jesus, or they all claim
Mary
that they were
Magdalene.
Cleopatra, Mary Magdalene, somebody. And I'm like, it's almost like they're tapping into some template overlay or something. It's like it's not a true past life memory. And a lot of them are Atlantis, and I feel like that's in place too, because we know this war takes place in the astral realm, and and stuff like that. So it's almost like you have to figure out a method or a modality to. It's like trying to work through a screen memory almost, and it's really interesting to me because it just can't be that many people who have a past life memory of being the same person.
I think it's a soul group though. And
Could be.
I think because it's such a strong archetype within us that people might, there might be a certain group of people that legitimately maybe were there, but then at the same time, they're recalling things that are very much in the distorted text, that are retelling stories that actually, as far as Keylontic science and the true Dora Torah text and the Emerald Order teachings and just the things that were handed to the Indigos, of a very different story that's not coming up in the past lives. So you're really not getting truth when they're being regressed or they're being talked to. They're just kind of sharing so the crucifixion happened and Mary, and it's very limited. So I think that actually happens. And what I learned is in the SSP, they were able to get the DNA of the Magdalene energy and the Yeshua energy or Jesus Christ, and they were able to create memory implants in a lot of people, so that actually when they're recalling something, they're basing it on a memory implant. I mean, there's the crucifixion implants, there's all sorts of implants that are in our seventh chakra, ethereal implants that were placed during Atlantean cataclysmic times that we would keep incarnating with these implants. And then that would scramble everybody in thinking like, and it's good that everybody acknowledges the Christ Sophia template. I think the past lives of all the ones that are like, oh, I was this magnificent thing, is dangerous. People get in their ego, they get territorial, they think they're the only one. I think if we saw it more like you have an archetypal lineage holder to this particular energy, you're representing this next level of how to unearth it and remind people of the deep inner template of that sacred union, alchemical marriage. But it's very irresponsible of psychics, I feel, to just be like, oh, you're a Cleopatra, you're a Jesus, you're this and that. And I see that when going to a psychic institute. And it's just like, and people told me certain things, and I'm like, no, it's a soul group. It's like many people carry this. And I think it's very important because when I used to do past life readings, I would focus on what's showing up now. I'm not going to pull up the most glamorous or famous ones. I'm going to look at like, why are you struggling with this pattern? What past life are you looping in where you didn't learn it or figure it out in that previous lifetime? It's not going to be what people want to hear.
Right.
So,
Well, guess what?
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thank you for validating my theory. um, I've had a past life come up twice now where I was a king. You think that would be a good thing, but it wasn't. I was a king who was having my people murdered, and abused my wife, and I was this terrible person. And it's come up twice, but that's an example of like something that you wouldn't make up, and you don't want to believe in, but it actually explained a lot of what I was going through in this lifetime as far as maybe a potential curse or relationships that I was dealing with. And once you acknowledge that was showing up for a reason, so I could understand that happened and heal that trauma. But either way, it's not like, it's interesting just to understand that it's not always going to be great.
No, we've worn so many hats. What are your thoughts, Brad and Drago?
Well, we
You're
know
muted,
Brad was a
Drago.
giant, so.
Drago, you're muted.
I found it. Sorry, guys. That freaking weed eater outside, he just left. So speaking of Atlantis, what I've discovered through QHHT is Dolores. This is a two-part kind of explanation. Dolores found out that sometimes spirits, before we incarnate into the physical, we lack certain skills and certain points of views. And
I do
sometimes
remember this.
we borrow the life experience of Cleopatra, of Jesus. What's not asked in a lot of these QHHT sessions, they're not asking if this was my original experience or if I borrowed this to come in with this life with these skills and knowledge so I can present my life thesis living through it. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, it's like helping you adapt to the earth energies. Like you come from somewhere else and you don't have the experience of being a human on earth. You need those past life memories from other people, like the soul group, to help integrate you into this reality. So I forgot Dolores Cannon talked about that. I'm glad you brought that up. It's very true. She did say that.
And to add to that, I've done a lot of people from Atlantis and Lemuria and all this other stuff. And I found out that a lot of nasty, hardcore shit happened in Atlantis.
Yeah.
And it was widespread. Atlantis was not all lights and kitten kisses, man. Like, we found out that the truth is they were doing illegal experiments. They were creating hybrids. They were putting us in coliseums and making these hybrids fight to the death. And everybody lost their connection to source and love. And when they would watch it with no emotion behind their eyes. You know, this time in Atlantis, we found out we had flying technology. They described it almost like a flying carpet. In the stories of Persia and Saudi Arabia, you're pulling stories from this more ancient stuff. But like you, Tyler, I've had some pretty traumatic lives, and they're not all love and light, man. And like, the people that are only claiming they only had these good experiences and they're telling the stories, kind of like the Valkyrie stories. When someone dies in battle, if they were a good friend of yours, you kind of change how they died. It's kind of like telling that epic hero's death. And then it changes and changes. You're like, I was this, I was that. Honestly, Tyler, when I look at you, I fully believe you were that king. I recognize that kingship in you and that power. And it always comes through, kind of like you lead by example. Like your show, you lead a lot of it. You're always asking the great questions. You're always seeing it from points of views that others aren't. And like, that's you get that from other lives. Like, you don't get that from just a single human life. And I know power when I see it, so I recognize that in you, man. Brad, you were talking about Solon and Plato and stuff. And the coolest thing I realized was a lot of that information we found in the Timaeus and Critias, which is kind of coming out now as a kind of like subject matter, but I think people should look up the Timaeus and Critias and it'll change your life. So Brad, that was awesome you brought that up.
And those are books by Plato, who describes Atlantis and the goings on. And you're right, they were doing some pretty awful thing, creating chimeras through genetic manipulation. They had atomic weapons around the world. And I brought this up on the Forbidden Archaeology panel. you can find evidence that there had been a major nuclear war all across the planet. There are big glass circles of vitrified sand that's literally melted sand with some kind of massive heat source found in the Sahara Desert. There are also vitrified castles up in Scotland where the rock has literally melted over other blocks of rock. And in Mohenjo-Daro, one of the Indus Valley civilizations, when they were uncovering it, they found all of these bodies in the town, and some of them were linking hands. And just like in Pompeii, that was engulfed with a volcano, that the people of Mohenjo-Daro were killed very suddenly. And then somebody had the foresight of bringing out a Geiger counter and finding extremely high levels of radiation in this community, that it had been nuked. It was a casualty of a nuclear war. And this was in India, and this was the counter to Atlantis, that they had fought this high-tech war, and it was of the evil doings of the priests of Atlantis that brought the continent down and ended that chapter. But they did survive. And in ancient Egypt, there is the remnants of the survivors of Atlantis who built the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx, with the record of Egypt being a very wet location. And this could have only been prior to the last ice age, that during the last ice age, the Sahara Desert was a jungle, and flowing water created those deep rivets in the Sphinx that Robert Schoch was very brave in bringing forth. And him and others, Graham Hancock, can't even go back to Egypt now. He says he's boycotted. Oh, just for telling an alternative perspective. But on the tip of past lives, and I brought this up on the panel at Journey to Truth, that we start to remember our past lives, and we have to come to clarity with what we might have done. You might have been a king and been revered by your people, but if you're a tyrant and affected other people's lives, hey, you're going to have to pay a karmic debt for that. So understanding it now in this lifetime and working through it, and also coming to the realization that everything you do in this life is going to be part of your life review. It's not St. Peter or anybody else judging you when you die. It's you seeing what you've done in the world affecting others that's going to determine whether you need to come right on back here to Earth School and learn those lessons once again, like that tyrannical king. You're going to have to learn those lessons one way or another. So it's best to just get started right now and be very mindful of everything that you do, that you affect reality, and the people around you has this ripple effect. And I call it the real philosopher's stone here, that once you know that, you can't do anything but be the best person you could possibly be in every aspect of your life. And I think once people really start to realize that and come in contact with their memories of past lives, this is going to bring forth the Great Awakening, because it's an individual pursuit as well to understand who we were in these other scenarios. And I've had past life recalls as I've traveled around the world, including Pompeii, just knowing that I'd been there and I knew my way around. This is the weirdest thing. I could tell, okay, this road leads out to the Colosseum. Sure enough, it did. If we take a right here, we'll go to the Forum. Sure enough, it was. And so when you start to have these interpersonal memories, and of course in Egypt, I had many of a similar nature, that you just remember it. And that's why I wrote these books about sacred places, because I encourage people to go to these locations, because once you do, like we were in Cahokia a couple weeks ago, you can remember, you can have these visions of what life might have been there, even if you weren't one of the inhabitants there. But those cities were huge. I would say it's a pretty good chance that all four of us had lived in some of these mound cities, because Cahokia in its heyday was larger than London in the year 1000 AD. Tens of thousands of people living there. And now it's just an archaeological ruin. So these places really speak to us and give us some recall on our past lives. And I highly recommend journeying out to seeing some of them, because you too will have your own experiences, and they're as individualized as your fingerprint, that they're individualized to each one of us. And you'll know it because you'll feel it, and you'll get goosebumps when you feel it. So that's how you know that you're having a past life recall in some of these old locations.
And I don't think anybody can take that away once you really determine it.
Yep.
I tend to keep mine kind of close to my chest. It's like, or close to my heart. It might come out in certain things of things that I understand, but some of the feedback I've gotten, I don't have fixed beliefs about. And like I kind of shared before, but I think, you know, we have such a larger picture mission that sometimes we choose lifetimes to wear sort of the dark hat, to be sort of a different expression than what we are going to eventually be, in order to understand what we're up against. That might be a patriarchal, tyrannical ruler that we might have had to wear the hat off, so that we, or wear the hat of, so that when we come to the fullness of our experience, we know what that energy signature looks like. We can speak to it. We can encourage it to maybe accelerate its growth. Because I just come across people that have had a lot of powerful, benevolent lifetimes, but a lot of, you know, dark ones. And there's sort of this greater alchemy of knowing what it's like to wear that hat, knowing what it's like to maybe even be the Illuminati or be the dark player in all of this, to have the full soul experience, to overcome it and be senior to those forces once and for all. And the very act of doing it is enough to clear it. And when we look at the black magic grids, though, and the things that took place in the Atlantean times, connected to Crowley, connected to negative alien agendas, connected to Maldek exploding, connected to refugee races and Anunnaki and forces that just kind of came in as sort of an infiltrator force, that instead of integrating, because we come from all over the stars, many different star systems and star seeds, why are the refugees more the opposition? And when we look at the Draco, when we look at these black suns or sons of Belial, they compromise their DNA on purpose. And the dark technologies that compromise the planetary grid network, you know, also, you know, compromised our ability to have these certain memories. That I think it made it a lot easier to be in this duality of good and evil by also living an evil lifetime or two, you know?
Well, it's like Tony Rodriguez once said, I respect the hell out of people who live life in a difficulty setting. The people who have the hardest lives in the darkest past, they're actually the wisest elders. They've when you've experienced it and you've lived it, you come from such a more grounded place. You don't, a non-judgmental place, I should say. And you understand things at a deeper level. Like, yeah, if you were Illuminati or Cabal in the past life or whatever you were, in this life, when you learn about it, like me, I don't know who I was or what I did, but when I learn about all the dark stuff, when I'm researching and coming across it, there's just a shock value that isn't there for me. And it's like part of me remembers, like either I was involved in it or I just remember that existed. And it allows me to research and navigate without being like completely traumatized. But it's like when I look at it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I feel like that's crucial. And like you said, it's just having that experience and living those dark lives and through those dark times. It builds you into somebody extremely, I guess, humble and non-judgmental and wise. And I think that's what we need.
I think that's why I also have a lot of compassion for the forces that are still under that control, that would go against those that are holding that greater integration, that are really moving forward. They're not quite there yet. And instead of sinking down to the level and like hating them or resenting it, you see the larger picture because of that greater wisdom. But
Sure.
Tyler, like, look at the kingdom you became in this life, man. Like, without that duality, exactly like you were explaining it, like, this is what I want to bring up to you while we're talking about this, is like, you now know what you're capable of doing with what your energy is capable of doing, and now you know what not to do, and you can see that dualistic nature of harming people, and now you see the value of saving every single one and waking people up from these control structures. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like, it's obvious now, and that's why you're being targeted, because I believe the journey to truth is your kingdom. And
I love it.
this is why they more than likely identified you as a child. Like, most of us are identified as children. And this is what we don't understand, because the bloodline we incarnate in, they're already pre-targeted. the Illuminati, they look for bloodlines. They look for Anunnaki connections, people with Rh negative blood, because the people who have direct connection to the Anunnaki blood, they are the most programmable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's pretty hardcore. So they identify all this at birth. So
Right.
finding these things out about you, again, none of that was shocking. It's more like, thank God he found out, because like major people and major movements, they're more important than they think they are. And we feel insignificant and we feel like we're nobody, but we feel like we're somebody. I think everyone here can agree with that. Like, you know, that we come with a certain power, and you don't just get that again from this life of Brad or Laura or Tyler, you know, like this is who our spirit is fundamentally. And without experiencing all the negative, all the killing, all the horrors we're capable of, you can truly never evolve. It's like, Brad, you were talking about earlier, how certain beings come in and they prefer a certain energy, like male archetype, right? You prefer that male energy. What we found out with from Dolores Cannon is, if you prefer the male archetype, they're going to force you into a female body, and you're going to have a lot of trouble with that. And this is where, I mean, Dolores Cannon has brought this up. She said that the original stuff that led to certain types of, just like say homosexuality in general, she explained that when you come into a body, you have an energetic preference, right? Like an archetype of who you are. And when you don't experience certain dualities, you're forced upon something foreign that you constantly battle. So imagine me being born in a female body. I would have a lot of problems with that with my masculine energy. So it would cause lifelong disassociation with my body. When I look in the mirror, I can't relate to that body. I curse that body. And that's what we're here to do, man. We're here to, if you understand that you chose your body, you chose your sex most of the times, you're here to get past all that. And Dolores says you're not allowed to hack your body up. You're not allowed to do certain things. And you have to accept these things about you, because that's what you struggled about the most.
The soul growth. That's where our soul growth is. And
Yeah,
that's
so
taking away from our children. Keep going.
Yeah, so when these people harm themselves, it really hurts me. Like when females cut their breasts off to transition, like I have a lot of clients that have body dysmorphia and DID and all kinds of things. And like one of the things they suffer from the most is like this identification of who they aren't when they look in the mirror. And what I found out is no matter how much they change themselves, they never truly found themselves. Does that make sense?
Right. Right. But you also have to remember also the suppression, obviously, that we're under, and the amnesia. And people don't, if that's the whole thing, we don't have that memory coming in. People don't understand the soul's evolution, the soul journey, and why they're here. And they're constantly manipulated from a young age. And then by the time they're an adult, they're completely programmed and programmable. And there's things in the water, the air, the food, deodorants, everything. There's chemicals that literally are changing your DNA. And I mean, the confusion's real. It causes neurological issues, and people don't really understand why it's happening to them. Like, mind control isn't just something that happens through a frequency. It can be done through chemicals and whatever, parasites and the whole parasitic thought forms and all that stuff. Like, it happens in so many different ways. So it's all weaponized. So you can't really blame the individual who decides to cut their breast off or does whatever they want to do, because they don't remember. Like you said, if people remembered, it would be completely different, but that's the entire game. They don't want us to remember, and they want us in a place where we're so confused and so insecure. The socially constructed insecurities that were just pushed upon us from birth, you know. Get on Instagram or any social media platform, and they show you these models and what these people are supposed to look like. And if you don't look like this, you're not going to be accepted. And it's just, it's all weaponized. So we have to really have compassion for those people.
Totally.
As hard as it is to see a man walking around in a dress or whatever the case is, that makes you uncomfortable, you have to have compassion, because these people are they're completely being controlled.
They're also rebelling to the previous programming of, the Barbie dolls, or this is what it means to be a male. You don't cry. So if a man starts to cry or feel emotions or connect with his inner feminine, he then gets confused because the programming says this is what it means to be a male. Or for women or girls, if they see just the culture or the trends or the generation before them, oh, okay, the Playboy programming, or you got to have blonde hair, you got to look like this. Well, I have more of a tomboy energy, so therefore I identify as a boy, right? See, I was a tomboy girl. Thank God my mom didn't take it too seriously. It's like, I'm just connecting to just my inner energies, whatever. To me, that's just as feminine to be up in a tree. It's just, I didn't buy into the programs. And I'm not saying, that I just didn't. And there will be many that don't, fortunately. And the ones that are caught in all of that, they have to realize they're rebelling against the programming, and it's a program on top of a program. And it's time to drop all the labels, turn off the devices. Parents, get your kids away from all that, get them out of these schools, let them develop and just love themselves and the soul that exists within that body, just like you guys are saying. And so I'm just so glad you brought it up, and what an incredible perspective. I mean, obviously we all feel that way. Brad, what are your thoughts about all that? And then I know we're going to have to close. We could I'll talk forever, but.
Yeah, just all valid points. And it's all about what the two words, the most profound words of the ancient world were, written on the temple of Apollo at Delphi. And that is, know thyself. And if you endeavor to know yourself, you will come into contact with past lives. You will come into contact with memories living in high-tech civilizations, or perhaps abject poverty, or being in wars. I've had many lifetimes as a warrior, and this lifetime, I'm just renouncing that. Totally nonviolence is my philosophy, and that's how we break the bonds of our karmic debts. And that is the Philosopher's Stone. That's what it's all about. That's the human experience. That's our time here in Earth School. And as Dolores Cannon said, we're in this period where we're moving to the new Earth, to a 5D reality. And those people who are of a pure heart, of wanting to know this knowledge about themselves, they're in a good position to do it. If you're still stuck in the fear, the anger, the hatred, getting upset over everything, you're not going to make that great leap. And this is why we're here in this world today, in this world, is because it's upon us. And I think in this lifetime, we're going to have that experience. And it's going to be the most beautiful lifetime you could ever experience. And to do it all together with us and have this prescient notion of what's coming in this new world is probably one of the greatest insights you could have as a human alive today.
That's right.
Right. No reason to escape. We want to be here right now where it's all going down.
To co-create. We can co-create, and it's all based in connecting to our visions and dreams, infusing our creative channels and grounding it through speaking it in our words, through living our truth, through not compromising ourselves, and knowing that once we cut the cords and we have that direct connect, that's when the synchronicities and divine flow and true abundance happens. We don't have to have that dependency bond. And it's no different than divorcing an imposter, a deceiver, an abuser, or a narcissist. It doesn't matter what gender it comes through. It's a program that we need to break. So this is an amazing time to be alive. And I think if you agree, Drago, and all of you, that we just go around for any final closing words, anything about what your latest thing is, what your books are, your website kind of thing. Drago, do you have any questions or final thoughts, or anybody else before we do that?
Brad, I want to compliment your knowledge of the vitrification all around the world. And I think one of the most important parts that happened in 2024 BC over around the Sinai Peninsula. So I thought it would be kind of cool if you you got a team with you, and we a dream in my head. You started traveling these sites and started using these Geiger counters, and we started using like satellite stuff, because one of the arguments is, there's two arguments about how this vitrification actually happened. They say, one, it was solar, or two, nuclear. Everything I've ever read in the Sumerian tablets talk about they were using nuclear war, especially at the Sinai Peninsula, because they were blowing up those Enki and Enlil and Marduk and everybody warring with each other. They blew up each other's like spaceports.
Yeah.
But for example, you have the walls of Jericho. Why around the walls of Jericho specifically is there not a lot of vitrification everywhere else? Like if something opened up in the sky and these solar winds came in and the solar activity and burned everything, it wouldn't just be certain like buildings. Like, why is all this vitrification seem to be centered on all these major buildings, but not much any other places? So I've always found that fascinating.
Yeah, that's a good point. And keep in mind that the walls of Jericho came down from the sound of trumpets.
Ark of
So
Covenant.
you're also talking about auditive levitation or using vibrational field from acoustic means to affect matter, just in the same way that a opera singer can shatter a wine glass with her voice. So there's a lot of new technology. Perhaps it's very ancient technology that's also coming out, and that's, to me, very interesting and an esoteric subject. So I would invite people to check out my series of books on the Esoteric Series, where I bring up a lot of the points that I talked about today. There they are. World
love these
Stompers,
books,
that's my
Brad.
first book
You
about travel
you
around the
signed them to
world.
me too, so
World
I'm really
Stompers.
stoked.
What's that?
I said, and Brad signed these books to me too, so I'm super stoked and humbled. Thank you, Brad.
That's
And
awesome.
also
Actually,
my series of books on sacred places too, that I spoke of in this conversation today. And you can go to cccpublishing.com and get your own signed copy of any of my books. Soon to be adding Laura Eisenhower to the roster of published authors next year. And it's just a great time to be alive, you guys, and really enjoyed this conversation we had today. Thanks for giving me new information on these subjects as well.
It was awesome. Hey, Laura, I want to start featuring a book of the show where we can start recommending cool books. So definitely check out Brad's book. This is an amazing book, Future Esoteric. He'll open your mind, make you question the narratives, and like show you all kinds of cool evidence. So definitely check this out. Definitely check out Tyler and Aaron's Journey to Truth podcast. Next level information. He just interviewed Dr. Courtney Brown. That was an awesome freaking show, dude. And I've never seen him admit so much stuff that he never talked about on his entire Farsight Prime platform. So for you guys to be hosted that show where he actually admitted a lot of that stuff, man, like
Yeah.
And you got
Yeah.
Dan Cooper too. What was that like? And any final thoughts? And just
yeah, no, Dan Cooper was interesting how that's been a while since I've talked to him, but we did 3 episodes with him, and that was really cool it's really cool to be in a position to bring people forward sometimes. Not that we're bringing them forward, like they've spoken other places, but a lot of times people hear about them for the first time through us. So that's great. I love that.
wow.
Yeah, Courtney Brown, it was cool to have him share what he did. And yeah, it was completely awesome. Shared a lot of people come on our show and seem to share things that they don't share anywhere else for some reason. I don't know if we bring it out of them or what it is, but as far as what we have coming up and how you can follow us, we have a webinar coming up this Sunday on Father's Day. It's an illusion. Movie magic isn't just for Hollywood. We're going to be covering clones, mask, the CIA mask, deepfake technology, holograms, the Hollywood immortals. We have put hours and hours of research into this webinar, and it's too long. I don't know how we're going to fit it into 2 hours, but it's going to be awesome. I'm excited. I can't wait to share it all. So if you're interested, you can sign up for our Patreon. It's only $5 a month. There's all kinds of exclusive content on there. We're doing monthly webinars, including some bonus content from the conference we just did. And so you can follow us on Patreon if you want to do that, or you can just follow us at Journey to Truth Podcast on YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, basically all the audio platforms except for Spotify. They kicked us off, but YouTube, we're hanging on by a thread. So we're encouraging everyone to head over to Rumble and subscribe over there, because we can say what we want over there. And that just seems like a safe place right now. Hopefully it stays safe. And what else? You can follow us on any social media platform, Instagram, Telegram, Facebook primarily. We have Twitter and some other accounts, but we're not really active on those all the time. So we appreciate any support. And also, we're coming out with the Cahokia Mountain documentary, which I'm really excited about. And so stay tuned for that.
That's so awesome. It's amazing to have both of you, Brad and Tyler. What a treat to just have this kind of roundtable and be here with Brad and just all your contributions, and just your high vibe energy. You just really make these times so much more bearable and a lot of fun, actually, and in this quest for all this truth, and also just being the embodied divine humans that are breaking through every barrier that presents itself. So I just have a few closing words myself, and Drago as well. And look forward to having you both just on your own, for your latest and after some of your adventures, and we'll definitely put all the links in the description. I have a webinar coming up. I'll just say a few words, and then Drago, if you want to close, called it's all about initiations, and it's through Portal to Ascension. It's 2 hours long, and it's a really, really important webinar because it's about all the different planetary alignments, the moving of the human growth period, or the soul development growth period for humanity, from the North Node Taurus, South Node Scorpio, into the Aries North Node, South Node Libra, and explaining what all that means, how that might impact our lives, and just how these planetary alignments are very much an initiation that has been hijacked, inverted, and presented to us in the form of psyops that want to sabotage our ability to move through these growth periods, which a lot of us already know about, but a lot of new information and insights and discounts on one-on-one readings with me. And you can find all that out on my website, cosmicgaia.org. And that webinar is going to be June 24th. And if you're a subscriber, you get a discount code. If you're not a subscriber, you can get a 15-minute free consultation with me to ask any questions. So I'll share that link, and trips coming up to Avebury, Glastonbury, and some other things I'll put on my website. And just going to continue to put out shows. Rebel Collective is going to be bi-weekly, and we're on Rumble. Drago, what about you? Any final thoughts?
Wait, before he moves on to him, I forgot to say something. Sorry. Aaron and I will also be in Aztec, New Mexico, August 25th to the 28th for the Sunfire Fest, put on by Jen and Brian Berryhill.
That looks amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be there. We're not presenting, but we have an experiencers lounge where we let all the attendees tell their stories on camera. We compile it into a video that we put on our channel after the conference. Anyway, they have early bird tickets on sale right now, $144 for the whole event, which is really cheap, the whole weekend. And you can get those at sunfirefest.com. Come hang out with us. We'd love to see you there. And go ahead, Drago. Sorry.
Yeah, be sure to send all those links.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Guys, this was one amazing little roundtable, man. Like, I feel that we all learned something from each other, and it feels like it came to a close really fast. So if you guys ever want to do a part 2, that's totally awesome. Because Brad, I want to hear about the Piri Reis map. I want to hear about the Drake passage and the Shetland Islands and Deception Island and like all that stuff. I had so many questions from you, but unfortunately, time dictates where it goes. And Tyler, dude, we need to get together. I'm telling you, I have so much information from you, man. And like, I really want to help you with the QHHT stuff. If you want to do that. Anybody want to find me, you could find me at fractaloflight.com. That's my QHHT hypnosis site. If you want to find me on Facebook and Instagram, it's the word space caked with a D, with a period between the words, space period caked. And that's it. Anything final with you guys? Anything in closing?
Just thank you for having us on. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Dude, both of you rock.
Great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll see you next in 2 weeks, Drago, for our next Rebel Collective.
I can't wait, girl.
Awesome, you guys. See you very
All right.
soon. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye, guys.